Let's get ready to do this. Welcome, everybody. I'm Lee Camp. This is Dangerous Ideas, and this is also day 186 of Israel's special genocide operation. And the IDF, or many in the IDF, many sources in the IDF are admitting the existence of kill zones, areas where they will kill anything and everything that's walking through. Of course, this is a war crime, but you know, Israel's so used to war crimes. They're so good at war crimes. They've been practicing war crimes in the off season, and they are so excited to add more to their list. So I don't know if that aspect of it really matters, but I'll be getting into that story as well as much more, including the fact that our food chain is on the brink. And I know that's not a fun one to hear. You know, that's not on a lot of Hallmark cards. You know, hey, happy Tuesday, food chain's on the brink. But you know, I'm all about bringing the truth, bringing the reality to you. And unfortunately, sometimes that reality is not exciting. It's not pretty, but that teaches you how to actually deal with it. You know, I don't mean I teach you how to deal with it. That would be a bit presumptive of me. Presumptuous, one of those, presumptuous of me to tell you everything of how to deal with it. But you can't deal with it if you don't know the reality, if you don't know the truth. Thank you so much to everybody who's here. Please share this, click the thumbs up. It really does help with the algorithms. I think my algorithms are in line right now. I think I've hit them. You ever notice you get four men in a room and their algorithms aligned? Have you ever noticed that? Anyway, I'm bringing you that. I also a special segment for members over on Locals at the end of this hour. I'll be bringing you my destruction, my obliteration of Russell Brand's interview with Steve Bannon. That will be coming up at the end of the hour. But for now, let's do what we do. I wanted to first start with, before we get to the kill zones, I wanted to first start with, which probably just saying that ruins my algorithm. I think my algorithms are now out of line. I think I did it. I shouldn't have said that word. Anyway, this is a great post about the difference between how the New York Times covers basically the same thing, but in two different areas of war. The war that the U.S. Is well, okay, I'm phrasing that poorly. When it's being done by the side of the war that the U.S. does not endorse. The U.S. really endorses all wars, but obviously the U.S. created the proxy war in Ukraine. But here's how it's reported. Here's how famine and the use of famine is reported in the New York Times when it's being done by America's enemy. Now, I don't actually know that this is true, that Russia was using famine as a weapon of war, but that's a side point. Let's just look at the way they phrase a headline. The title of this New York Times article is How Russia is Using Ukrainians' Hunger as a Weapon of War. So you very quickly, in the first two words, you have them saying, who's doing it? Russia's doing it. Evil, evil, dastardly Russia. Oh, they do so many bad things. They're doing it. They're using Ukrainians' hunger as, and then they clearly say what the crime is: a weapon of war. It's a weapon of war, people. So they tell you exactly what's going on there. Here's how they cover it in Palestine, in Gaza. First, they put Gazans, and so it's the victim instead of the perpetrator, right? Showing you the victim instead of the perpetrator. Describe search for food, which is famine, that is starvation. It's not a surge for food, it's starvation. So next they tell you that. And then they say in the title, and wonder if it will get worse. Well, let's see. Who are the perpetrators? Who's making it worse? Who's responsible for this? Who has put Gaza under siege? Who has cut off all food to Gaza, to Palestinians? Well, all of that, of course, is Israel. And the New York Times won't say that in the title. And why is the title so important? I'm sure New York Times says Israel somewhere in the article, but the title is so important because nowadays we all know that people don't actually go through the whole thing, right? They read a title and they move on. A title probably 25 times as many, maybe more, maybe I'm undershooting it, read the title than actually read even the first 2 paragraphs of the article. It's kind of similar to a Google search. You know, some people will go, what? The legitimate news, the good news outlets, the real news outlets are still in the Google search. You just got to go 1 or 2 pages past that first page. Well, first of all, 80 or 90% of all searches end on the first page. People don't go past the first page. I think 80% is actually the first 3. People click on the first 3 of what Google shows you. So if you do a search, yeah, there might be one of my articles out there, one of my videos out there, but if you do a search for the topic, they're not going to show you that till page 5 of Google. No one has actually gotten to page 5 of Google. It's just a mystery. It's a myth. It's a legend. People talk about what goes on page 5 of Google. No, everyone stops on page 1 and never goes any further. And so that's how Google can manipulate information. This is kind of similar. These outlets know that you mainly just read the title. Most people don't get into paragraph 2 and 3. So that's how the title is used as propaganda. Don't show who's doing it. When it comes to Israel, don't show, don't call it starvation. Don't call it a weapon of war. Just say that Gazans are looking for food and they're not sure where it's going to come from. End of story. Okay, I wanted to bring you this next video real quick because I have made the point many times that Zionist does not equal Jew. There are many anti-Zionist Jews like myself around the world. There are actually more Zionist Christians in America alone than there are Jews in the world. So in that way, Zionism is actually more of a Christian project than it is a Jewish one if you actually look at numbers. But anyway, obviously it's a joint project. It's not just Christians. But so I wanted to bring you this 1-minute video and tell you about a large group of Jews, American Jews, who are they have the more traditional Jewish look than I have because I'm a secular Jew. I'm an atheist Jew. I'm that kind of Jew, even though I was not raised secular, really. But they call themselves Torah Jews. These are very observant Jews. I'll be honest, most of them are in New York because I live there, and that's where a good many of them were. Hasids, and this is maybe not all Hasids, but this is a large group of Hasidic Jews who are anti-Israel because they know that Israel as an apartheid oppressive regime actually increases anti-Semitism. It's actually bad for Jews worldwide to have an oppressive apartheid regime. So here they tweeted, and I've been in contact with them, by the way. They do not do interviews, so I'm not going to be able to get an interview with them, but I can get, comments and things. Anyway, they say in this post, we will not allow Israel to use and abuse the sacred name of the Jewish people. The tremendous loss of life in this nightmarish war pains us to no bounds. So I'm going to play this 1-minute clip of one of the members.
I am an American Hasidic Jew. My heart is shattered over the loss of so much innocent life in this ongoing war. It pains me to the very core how all of this is carried out in the name of Jewish people. Whoever I know feels the same. We want peace. We have no nationalistic aspirations in the Holy Land, but only want everyone to live at peace. Jews live in the Holy Land for centuries before Zionism in harmony with their Muslim neighbors. May God uplift the broken, heal the injured, free the hostages, and finally bring upon peace to this world.
There we go. So I just thought I'd bring you that because you don't often see discussions with them on your mainstream media. Isn't that interesting? The mainstream media largely does not want to talk to these very Jewish, very observant, not secular like myself, very observant Jews who have no interest in a nation state that oppresses others, that puts millions of people in an open air prison, and now, since October 7th, creates a full on, fast paced genocide. There are many of these Jews out there, and they do not get the representation because they don't serve the ruling elite. They don't serve the Christian Zionists. They don't serve your mainstream media, which puts up so much propaganda to support Israel in this ongoing genocidal effort. And it just doesn't fit, right? It doesn't fit with the story. It doesn't fit well enough with the story they're trying to tell. So I wanted to bring you that clip, and maybe I'll be bringing you more from them in the future. But okay, let's get to, thank you, Dan, again for the donation. Yes, Dan. Love you, buddy. Says free Palestine, free Julian Assange, and U.S. nationalism. Thank you so much, Dan, and all of your super chats, folks. Support the show, whether you're watching this live or not. You can still support the show by clicking the thanks button on YouTube and throw a few bucks to the show. Also, it'd be great if you could share this out and let people know this is where you get your news or your info or your comedy or whatever the hell you want to call this genre is that I do. Can't thank you all enough. So I specifically wanted to bring this from this story from Haaretz. I've been highlighting Haaretz many times over the past several months. They are a liberal Israeli newspaper. They are pro-Israel. And yet even they admit many things like this. They're kind of like the New York Times of Israel in that they are, more left-wing than the far right-wing publications, but they are still running some level of propaganda for Israel. But even they, here in this article, Israel created kill zones in Gaza. I love how they use the past tense. Not anymore, right? We're past all that. We're not just shooting at everything that moves anymore. We wouldn't do that anymore. Israel created kill zones in Gaza. Anyone who crosses into them is shot. And so first they start off by reminding everyone of that video. Many of you probably saw it. It went viral. It was leaked from the IDF bombing four Palestinians that were just walking, doing nothing to no one. There was no one around. There was no one they were chasing. They weren't looking surly. They're just walking in a completely empty area, and they are bombed, and two of them die immediately, and then the ones that survived are then bombed as well. Full-on assassination of just innocent people. Now, you may go, well, haven't they done that to roughly 33,000 people? Yeah, they have, but this one was on video, which I think changes things for a lot of people, or at least the video was released. So first they remind everybody of that. They talk about it was in Khan Yunis. Two of the men were killed instantly. Two others were wounded and tried to continue walking. Perhaps they thought they had been saved, but second later, a bomb drops on them too. This story, it says, is but one example made public of the manner in which Palestinians are killed by IDF gunfire in the Gaza Strip. The number of dead Gazans is now estimated to be over 32,000, over 33,000, but of course, it's far higher than that because that's not counting the people lost in the rubble. According to the army, some 9,000 to 10,000 of them have been terrorists. Right, sure. Absolutely, IDF. I'm sure a third of everyone you've murdered has been terrorists. And considering we now know about Lavender, the AI program, God, I hate Lavender, the AI program that just targets anyone and that they think is quote unquote slightly connected to Hamas, even if it's a low level dude who gets some sandwich, 15-year-old fetches sandwiches sometimes, they then kill that person in their house so that it kills their whole family. Well, then I'm sure that sounds like they're getting 1/3 terrorists as they commit this genocide. No, of course it's not a third of them. Anyway, a host of reserve and standing army commanders who talked to Haaretz cast doubt on the claim that all of these were terrorists. It's quite possible that Palestinians who never held a gun in their lives were elevated to the rank of terrorists posthumously, at least by the IDF. Isn't that nice of the IDF to give them a little bumping in the rankings after they've been killed? Give them a little bump up. Oh, good. I've been elevated after I died. So one reserve officer said, in practice, a terrorist is anyone the IDF has killed in the areas in which its forces operate. So basically, anyone the IDF kills, that's a terrorist. End of story. Doesn't matter what they were doing, doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter anything else. And what does this remind me of? There was something, oh yes, the United States of America. The United States of America, some of the leaked files, some of the leaked information that came out of the Pentagon, I think some of them came from Daniel Hale, revealed that the U.S. was basically viewing anyone that they killed in a target area as a militant in Afghanistan. Didn't matter what they were doing, how old they were, if it was a male of military age, which, I don't know what the U.S. considers military age, probably 12 or something. But if it was a male of military age, then they were a militant. They could be herding goats. Didn't matter. They're a militant. And this is rather similar. If you're in the area we're attacking, then you must be a militant. How do you know? Well, we attacked you. Well, why'd you attack him? Well, because he was a militant. Well, how'd you know he was a militant? Because we attacked him. Oh, I see. So why'd you attack him? Because he was a militant. How'd you know he was a militant? Because we attacked him. Got it. Sorry. At first, I misheard you. Here's another quote from one of these folks in the IDF, one of these genocidal maniacs or those who have been deluded enough to think they're doing right. Quote, it's astonishing to hear the reports after every operation regarding how many terrorists were killed, he says. You don't need to be a genius to realize that you don't have hundreds or dozens of armed men running through the streets of Khan Yunis or Jabalia, mispronounce that, fighting the IDF. Jabalia, I guess. He emphasizes that it's not that we invent bodies, but no one can determine with certainty who is a terrorist and who was hit after entering the combat zone of the IDF force. So, yeah, they have no idea. They're just killing all the men they can. Indeed, a number of reservists and other soldiers who were in Gaza in recent months point to the ease with which a Palestinian is included in a specific category after his death. It seems that the question is not what he did, but where he was killed. The combat zone is a key term. This is an area in which the force sets itself up, usually in an abandoned house, with the area surrounding it becoming a closed military area, but with no clear markings as such. Another term for such areas is kill zones. So IDF sets themselves up, few guys in an area. They then decide anybody to come within that whatever, 100 feet, 2 blocks. I don't know how they measure it, but anybody to come within that area must be a terrorist because we're here and they're there. But of course, nobody knows that they've set up this perimeter. They don't put up a little sign. When you drive by a construction site and there's a guy there where the sign says stop and slow and he spins it around. There's nobody standing there with a sign they spin around that says IDF area, stop, slow. You just walk into that area and they murder you because you're in their area. These are kill zones, kill boxes, and the Palestinians have no idea where they are or when they'll be murdered. Here's another quote. In every combat zone, commanders define such kill zones. This means clear red lines, not literally, so in their heads, that no one who is not from the IDF may cross so that our forces in the area are not hit. As soon as people enter it, mainly adult males, orders are to shoot and kill even if that person is unarmed. The tragedy in which these 3 hostages were killed, this is another story of 3 hostages that were killed. I think you probably remember this story. The mainstream did cover this, that three Israeli hostages were released or escaped or whatever it was, and they come running out with a white flag to say, don't kill us, and the IDF kills them. And they're saying in this article that that's because they wandered into a kill zone. So clearly, white flag or not, just murder them. It appears, he says, that many combat forces are writing their own rules for engagement. So then this article gets into, they don't use this phrase, but I've used it and others have used it, the collapse of the chain of command in the IDF. there really is little chain of command. The upper echelon may say do something, the lower echelon does whatever they want. There's no accountability for murdering people, so why not just murder whoever you want? There's really not much accountability for looting or anything like that. And this is what you see in a genocide. When you create a genocide and genocidal conditions, you are creating a moral void. There is no need for morality that these troops see because they have been told to murder everyone, children, women, doesn't matter. And their morality is just gone. So no one's held accountable. If they kill an innocent person, do you really think the top of the IDF that is committing this genocide pulls them aside and says, I oughta? I mean, the official also said, regrettably, there are still commanders, even senior ones, who do as they please in their conduct in the Gaza Strip. So this is the IDF admitting that they have no control over their troops. Throughout our decisions with various defense officials, officers, and combatants, the dilemma of distinguishing between a civilian and a terrorist kept cropping up. Oh, isn't that interesting? When you go into an area with 2.3 million people and you decide you're going to just try and murder thousands of them, it's tough to know which ones, huh? And not always the case. It's always tough to figure out. When you're committing a genocide, it's tough to decide exactly who to genocide. How can you identify someone if you're in danger or decide whether it's right to wait a while without rushing to shoot? Turning to commanders can yield different answers depending on the person and the situation. For our commanders, here's a quote from a soldier. For our commanders, if we identified someone in our area of operation who was not part of our forces, we were told to shoot and kill anyone. Doesn't matter who. So let's see. That's pretty much it. A senior IDF commander who was involved in the combat adds that, quote, in many parts of northern Gaza, there are civilians who are not in these humanitarian shelters. Some of them simply returned to or stayed in their houses. Imagine that. To protect their property from pillage, concerned that someone else would take over their house while they fled. So as it says in the article, you may think that you may tell all the civilians, unless you're in this refugee area, then we're going to shoot to kill. But you can keep them in there for a month, maybe, or 2 months. But you go 6 months, and guess what? People start going back to their homes. They start looking for food. They start spreading out. No one stays in a tiny, refugee area while their friends and family are being murdered forever. Like it. So it's all horrific. It's all war crimes. And and then the article says there's no written order regarding a kill zone in the IDF's rule book. But this doesn't mean that the concept is unknown to soldiers. Oh, isn't that fascinating that the IDF doesn't put their war crimes in their rule books? If you find a pamphlet for an IDF soldier, it doesn't say, here's how to commit the war crimes. Create your kill zone and shoot anybody who walks into it. Of course they don't write this stuff down. Of course it's not in the IDF code book. Hey, we're going to have kill zones. Everybody sign up. So, but here we have many, they talked to clearly dozens of IDF, most, if not all of them, not willing to give their name because they probably would have been court-martialed immediately, but, or whatever Israel calls it. And so not giving their name, but, dozens of currently serving IDF say that this is fairly common policy, kill zones. They also say that the chain of command is breaking down and various commanders, various lower level troops do whatever the hell they want. And when you're in the midst of committing a genocide, you pretty much do what you want, because who's going to tell you, hey, you broke the moral rule in our genocide. You did the genocide wrong. You did it just slightly wrong. Do you really think anyone's going to say something like that? Okay, while we're on the topic of Israeli genocide, by the way, please hit share, hit subscribe, hit no matter what platform you're on, hit the follow thingy or the doohickey or a star or a butterfly. I don't know what the butterfly does. Try clicking that. Just click things. Just everybody, just pick a thing and click. Okay, it couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt. as as I continue to be one of the most suppressed and censored commentators on the web. I love that. As I said, for members, I'm going to do a special segment at the end of this hour, tearing apart Russell Brand's interview with Steve Bannon. I love that I'm essentially more suppressed and censored than Steve Bannon. Like Bannon can still get on big platforms. He's still welcome in a lot of those. Can't criticize capitalism. No. Can't be on them. But here's when Israel committed genocide in 1948. It's this day in history. This is from Going Underground, which is a great account, and it's also a great TV show. And I interviewed the host not too long ago on this very live stream. Anyway, they say on this day in 1948, around 120 fighters from far-right Zionist paramilitary groups, Irgun and Lehi, attacked Deir Yassin, a Palestinian village of 600 people near Jerusalem. And for those who know their Nakba history, this is well known, but most people do not know the true history of 1948. Between 170 to 250 men, women, and children were massacred mercilessly. And this is by the admission on video of many of those doing the massacring. They continue to write, going Underground continues to write, women were raped and victims were mutilated. The horror of what happened at Deir Yassin quickly spread throughout all of Palestine, and fear of the ruthlessness of the Zionist militias led to many Arabs fleeing for their lives. Deir Yassin became a central point of the Nakba. They're calling, by the way, many are calling this the second Nakba. This first Nakba was 1948 when 700,000 Palestinians were murdered and pushed, and then millions others pushed to refugee camps, which ultimately became the West Bank and Gaza and other areas. But so that was the first Nakba, and this is the second one. And anyway, I'm not going to play the clips, but because they're captioned and that doesn't do well on the podcast. By the way, folks, if you ever miss the show and you're like, well, I have to get in my car, you can also listen to this all on podcast. It's called The Lee Camp Show on Spotify. It's also called Common Censored. Those are my episodes with Eleanor Goldfield. Anyway, but for those of you who can see the visuals, this is them, now old men, admitting to what they did. And of course, they said, one of them says someone took one shot. So you're talking a whole Palestinian village, and they claim, even in their claims, whether it's true or not, who knows, even in their claims, they go into this town to basically murder, torture, and kick out people, and someone takes a shot at them. They then go on to throw grenades into family homes, one after another, just walking down the line. And obviously, those grenades kill most, if not all, of the family in that home. And for those who survive, they then flee, which is the goal. This was the only way that Israel, well, it's not the only way to steal land, but this is the way Israel came up with to steal the land in order to create the state of Israel. They couldn't just get people to leave their ancestral lands, their ancestral farms by asking them nicely, hey, please leave the place you've lived for 100 years. Hey, please, we'll give you $20. Just leave your farm and your family and your town. And so they couldn't get them to leave that easily. So instead, they went in with militias and murdered what ultimately is, by most estimates, hundreds of thousands, but clearly pushed millions to refugee camps. And this is how this was the formation of the state of Israel in 1948, 47, 48. And here are these fighters, former fighters, old men now, admitting to it. And, they're saying it was horrible, but what can we do? Someone took a shot at us, or we were told by the upper command that this was the way to behave. Whatever excuses they make for themselves. I mean, all the Nazis made excuses for themselves, right? All the guards and the lower level soldiers, they said, following orders. I'm supposed to know that it was not cool to commit genocide. I don't know. All right. Here is a statement. Again, zero coverage in the mainstream media. By the way, in a moment, I'm getting to the breakdown of our food chain and many other stories as well. Please make sure to hit buttons, hit thumbs up and stuff. This is the Foreign Press Association, major international journalist organization, and they put out a statement regarding the 6 months of no access to Gaza for foreign journalists. Also, and I don't know whether they put out a statement on this, but they should if they haven't. They probably have on the over 100, I think it's like 130 journalists that Israel has murdered since the beginning of this thing, which is more journalists murdered in just that number of days, 186 days, than the entirety of the Vietnam War, than the entirety of World War II, because in those wars, they weren't targeting journalists. I'm not saying that every journalist would walk by from the other side, they just said, hey, come on, hang out with us. I don't mean that, but I mean they weren't looking for and dropping bombs on journalists. That wasn't the aim. Whereas for Israel, that is the aim. Anyway, here's the statement from the Foreign Press Association. Foreign Press Association is alarmed that 6 months into the Israel-Hamas war, and by the way, it's not an Israel-Hamas war, it's an Israel genocide, but that's them being nice. Let's be nice in the opening paragraph. Israel continues to bar international reporters from entering any part of the Gaza Strip independently. The barring of independent press access to a war zone for this long is unprecedented for Israel. It raises questions about what Israel does not want international journalists to see. And this speaks to all these people who try and defend what Israel's doing, who say, oh, no, this is legitimate. Oh, they're just going after terrorists. Oh, Hamas, human shields, blah, 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 blah. Garbage they're spitting up. Why not let in journalists? If they're doing it legit by the book, why not let in journalists? Because we all know why, because luckily a lot of camera videos have come out and things like that. I mean, phone videos, etc. But it's because this is not a legitimate fight. It's not a legitimate war. It's just a genocide. They continue. Israeli authorities have repeatedly rejected our appeals for access in private meetings and in a Supreme Court ruling, citing a variety of security-related and logistical arguments. The military has granted a small number of opportunities for an even smaller number of media outlets to enter Gaza under military escort. Well, where do you think Israel is going to take them when they escort them through Gaza, or not through Gaza, in one little area of Gaza? They're just going to take them to some little staged thing, show them a tunnel and say, look, tunnel. At the same time, Palestinian journalists inside Gaza have faced unprecedented threats and harm while courageously covering the story. Wow, that was pretty diplomatic of the FPA. Threats and harm, they're being murdered. So many of them have been murdered. 130 have been murdered. So, yeah, threats and harm is a nice way to, it's like thoughts and prayers. It's just threats and harms. The decision whether to be on the ground in Gaza should be up to each individual international media outlet. The blanket ban has limited the world's ability to witness the true cost of war to all sides. This is a very diplomatic statement, but the point is the same. Israel will not allow journalists because they know what they'd find. They know the reality they'd show, and they cannot allow that. Okay. This is so moving on, I'll probably, if I have time, I'll be getting back to Israel's genocide operation, which I know people may, and I've had a couple of people, most people are not complaining about this because they understand this is the most important thing going on in the world right now, this and maybe climate crisis. But most people understand just how important this genocide is to cover. But occasionally people will go, oh, you're covering that too much. And it's like, there is no greater, like everybody, every media outlet, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they should all be covering this non-stop. Of course, they're not, because it's not good for ratings. And it might, the ruling elite who pay for ads don't like it so much. Also, it's a U.S.-backed genocide, so that doesn't look so good, does it? So anyway, I'll probably be coming back to it if we have time. But I want to move on for the moment to This is from Roger Hallam, the co-founder or founder of Extinction Rebellion. You probably heard his name. And he is regularly bringing us upbeat posts on how we're all going to die. And here is one of them. Just the other day, he says, update on how you're going to starve. And I'm not just bringing this to you from a morbid, like, let's look at how horrific things are, but I'm bringing it to you as a let's get active. Let's keep fighting to do something about this. He says, first up, it's good to read the industry press, Potato News Today, about this and ask a farmer like myself. But he says, here's the deal with potatoes. When it rains too much in the spring, you can't plant them, which is what's happening now. I think I don't know which area of the world he's referring to, but I think he's referring to Britain. When it does not rain in the summer, they do not grow, and it's difficult to irrigate big fields of crops. They are difficult to store for more than a year, unlike grains. They are a major source of carbohydrates, stuff that stops you from going hungry. They are a staple. And as our food sources begin to collapse, these type of staple foods are going to become more and more important in the climate crisis. But as he's pointing out, the climate crisis will make it incredibly difficult to grow enough potatoes with an increasing population in this world. He says, just about every year now, there is a potato growing crisis for the above reasons. The first time you go hungry will be when the European crop totally fails, combined with a bad year for wheat and rice. The present odds for this, statistics, not unreasonably, would be within 10 years. The climate is not in a quote unquote issue. It's a matter of life or death, your life or death. You decide to resist, or the people in power will continue to organize the death of yourself and your family. It's happening here. It's happening again. It's happened here. It's happening again. And, these are incredibly important points about the food chain. Now, of course, if you had hydroponic farming in a large way, a ridiculously massive way, you could avoid a certain degree of this. However, we're not cooperating. Nations are not cooperating to do that. We're not putting the money into it to do that. And even if you did that, hydroponic farming for whatever billions of potatoes, I can't even imagine the size of it. It's just a patch on us. It's a symptom, right? It doesn't fix the planet. It just means you might have an extra potato meal a day or something. So, but still, we should be talking about these solutions to the horrific future we're headed towards because of capitalism. Now, he doesn't say the word capitalism. That's not really his thing. But this is how our economics works. There is no financial there's no financial benefit in them planning 10 years ahead and stopping climate crisis. The financial benefit is in sucking everything out, enriching a tiny number of people, and just leaving everyone else to try and deal with the outcome, with the ramifications, with the tsunami of death spiral, to perfectly mix my metaphors. We're just left to deal with it while the rich get richer and richer. And they assume, and apparently food prices have gone up by about 36% over the past 5 or 10 years, largely because of this, partially because of this. And they're going to keep going up. And the very rich assume they're going to be able to buy their way out of this crisis. Now, they may for a while. Right now, they largely can. Right now, they move to places that are doing better than other places. They're not moving to, the Maldives where the islands are going underwater. They're moving to the places that are dealing with it less, but they're not going to be able to buy their way out of it forever. Roger Hallam also posted about the Atlantic Ocean circulation collapse. It will be impossible to grow food in North Europe. Temperatures would drop 3 to 8 degrees Celsius, enough to have the land, cut in half the land where you could grow wheat. And then this other person, I thought this was interesting, posted that in Finland 2023, because of a hot and dry summer and a wet autumn, it's been a exceedingly bad harvest. The harvest total has been down 24%, cereals down 41%, vegetables down 16%, fruit down 19%, animal husbandry down 6%, and nobody's talking about it. So these things affect all of us. They impact all of us. This ecocide that we're committing by living in an economic system that just eviscerates everything. And we need to be talking about it. We need to be planning. We need to get rid of the sociopaths at the top. We need to create and evolve into new systems. All of those things. Step one is to greatly cut back animal agriculture, with the number one industry cause of greenhouse gases and deforestation. Another one is to end fossil fuel use, which the United States never will, because it's why our money has value. The petrodollar. And it's amazing that even the people you think are so outside the box, they're independent media, they're outside traditional thinkers, even many of them refuse to get near the petrodollar, which is kind of like, it's mind-blowing to me. I don't know who told them they can't say it if they're on independent media. I don't know why they have to suppress themselves. I don't know if they just choose to be ignorant of the reality of it, but yeah. It's just incredibly frustrating that they continue to avoid one of the most important topics as to why the United States, why we've committed about half of all our invasions, or maybe more, why we continue to not actually push in a real way for a green, sustainable future. Yes, it's capitalism, but it's capitalism tied to the petrodollar. Okay, let's move to another story here. And in just a minute, I'm going to get to how U.S. workers are about to bail out a top 100 company, one of the biggest, most profitable companies in the United States is going to get bailed out by you and me. I'm going to get to that and much more, but the rest of this live stream will be at rumble.com/Lee Camp. It is free to watch there, as well as my locals page, rumble.com/Lee Camp, rumble.com/Lee Camp. Join me over there if you want to continue to see this show. If you are absolutely just opposed to seeing free content, then I hope you will still come join me 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, for these live streams, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Just show up, because I doubt you'll get the alerts. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and you can watch anytime, and you can support the show anytime by clicking the thanks button. Okay, let's do it. See you later, those of you who refuse to go to rumble.com/Lee Camp. I don't know what your deal is, what your sitch is.